So when you're defending somebody, and I understand that each case is going to be different, but whether it's a PED related charge or not, if they're an athlete or bodybuilder, how do you build a defense? Like, what are these steps that you take? Like, what are the first things that you look at and start to try to build a defense for them?
Right. So it really depends on the facts of the case. And I'll give you an example of one case that, I don't know how famous it is, but it may be my favorite case.
Okay.
I got a call from a woman in the far west in a state. I won't say what it was, but it was a state in the west who calls me up and says, look, I am a high level competing bodybuilder, not IFBB, but high level amateur competitor, highly ranked, and I've been arrested for selling a single vial of testosterone, one
Ooh.
10 cc vial of SIP in my gym, and she had like a executive training facility. This isn't a hardcore gym,
Hmm.
and they're saying that I sold this. I didn't sell it. I'm an innocent person. I've been accused of something I didn't do. Okay. So I call up the prosecutor on the case, and he says, I don't know what you're talking about. This woman, we have her dead to rights. She's lying to you. What happened? We had an undercover informant who went into her gym. She sold it in the gym to him. And the day before, she had a phone call with him where he cold called her and said, I want to come to your gym. I want to train. She said, well, I'll train you. I'll give you a diet and I want steroids. And she says in that phone call, I will sell you one vial, 10 cc vial of testosterone for $100, and I will put it inside of a multivitamin bottle. So when you come in tomorrow, I'll sell that to you for $100. And so the next day, the undercover informant, who's working off his own steroid case. I mean, that's the way it works, right? Somebody gets arrested and they become a snitch for somebody else, right? So that guy then meets with the cop. Cop gives him a frisk, gives him $100, lets him drive his own car to the gym. Guy gets into the gym, has a conversation, tape recorded, a recorded call, interaction with the client. The client at the end, there's a discussion where he says, oh, do you have that bottle of vitamins that we talked about? She goes, yeah. She gives him the bottle of vitamins and he brings that out to the cop, gives it to the cop. Cop opens up the bottle of vitamins. Guess what's inside? The vial of testosterone. 2 weeks
Hmm.
later, they go into her house, they do a search warrant, and they find steroids in her house, in her bedroom. So he
Hmm.
goes, listen, under our law, we have a three strikes and you're out law. Strike one is that unrecorded phone conversation that happens, let's say, on the Tuesday. Strike two is the next day. She goes in the Wednesday and she sells him the vial. Strike three is 3 weeks later when they come in the house and they find the steroids. One, two, three strikes and you're out. She's looking at 10 years in prison. 10 years in prison for that one vial and what they
Oof.
find in the house. I'm willing to give her probation. She pleads guilty to a felony and I'll give her not a day in jail. She'll get probation, but she got to plead to the felony. I call her back. I say, listen, they've got a very different view of this evidence. She says, I don't care what they say. I will go to trial on this and I will spend 10 years in prison. I am not pleading guilty to something I didn't do. So what happens? Tough situation. So two things in that state that were good. One is there's discovery. So I was able to listen to the recording of the transaction itself, right?
Hmm.
And I let my office mates hear it. I let my staff hear it because I wanted to make sure that what I was hearing was what they were hearing. And secondly, in that state, you had depositions before trial. Most states you don't have that. Most states it's trial by ambush. The prosecutor can ambush the living hell out of you, and you don't. Other than some discovery, you never get to depose the actual witnesses that are going to be called. There, you had the right to depose the witnesses. So I said I want to depose your snitch, and I want to depose the cop that he was working for. So I fly out to that state. The town it was in was this tiny little town. It took like 2 hours to drive there from the airport up in the mountains. And I get there and, I hire local counsel, which I do in many cases. And local counsel spends most of the night trying to badger her into pleading guilty, saying, "What are you, crazy? You're looking at 10 years. Take the probation." She's like, "Absolutely not." And I said, "You know what? Let's do this." So we went in the next day for the deposition. And the prosecutor says to me, "I got bad news." I go, "What's the bad news?" "Well, the undercover informant is not available today." I'm like,
You have a
"What are
day
you talking?"
off.
Yeah, I mean, I just flew out from New York. It was a long plane flight. I'm out here. I've driven up here. I'm ready to go. You're telling me this morning? This is nuts. "Well, we have the cop." I'm like, "Well, that's not going to do it." He goes, "Well, we could reschedule it." I said, "Well, I got a busy schedule. I'll come back in maybe 3 months when I have time." He goes, "No, if she doesn't take the plea to the probation within 30 days, our policy is that's withdrawn, and then she's got to go to trial and risk the 10 years." So strong arm tactics that,
Hmm.
not very nice. So obviously I'm not flying back out there. He goes, "Well, one thing I could do is I could get the guy on the phone." So I'm not sure any lawyer has ever deposed a witness on the telephone. This is a wacky thing, but given all the circumstances, let's do it. So we go in, we're in a room, he gets the snitch on the phone, and I established that the snitch he had been arrested, and he had been given a deal that if he could set up 3 people for their own steroid sales, he would get a misdemeanor. And he had set up one, and it had been 6 months since that setup. So in my mind, this guy's desperate, right? He's looking for somebody to
Right.
set up. And my client, admittedly, high ranking bodybuilder, she looked like low hanging fruit, right? So in front of a jury, her being charged with anything related to steroids, it's a tough sell, right? I mean, it's looking visibly like hypermuscular. So I ask him those questions. I find out that he wasn't searched fully before he went into the gym. I begin questioning him about the conversation that occurs in the gym, and then specifically the transaction. And he says, I gave her $100. And I'm like, "You're sure it was $100, right?" "Yes." "You're positive of that?" "Yes." "Wasn't less than that?" "No." "Okay. She didn't ring that up in the cash register, did she?" "No." Because nobody's ringing up a drug transaction that you're saying it's a drug transaction in their cash register and
Mhm.
document. Agreed? "No, of
Yeah.
course not." No, so she didn't do that. What he didn't realize was she had given me the receipt from the cash register, time coded to him in the place for $25, which was the cost of the vitamin supplement, not $100. What he also didn't realize was that after he gets that bottle, the recording stayed on. So you hear him say, I got to use the bathroom, and go into the bathroom. So my question is, so after you did that transaction, you went directly to the police officer that you were working with, right? "Oh, yes," because you now have this sacred evidence, the evidence of the crime in your hand, right? Right. You didn't go anywhere else, right? No. You understand that you'd want to have an unbroken chain to give him that evidence, right? "Oh, yes. Oh, I understand." So you went directly there. Well, "Oh, I did have to go to the bathroom." Wait a minute. You had to go to the bathroom so badly that you couldn't wait just a few minutes to give this evidence to the police officer? "No, I had to go so bad. I had to go so bad." Number one or number two? He goes, "Number one." Okay, so your bladder was so
Okay,
full
so good thing we know that.
that you had to go and use that bathroom. And so you went into that bathroom, right? Yes. And you took that bottle, right? Yes. Close the door? Yes. Lock the door? Yes. No one else in that bathroom, right? Yes. Just you and that bottle, right? What he didn't realize, it was still running. And so you hear him take his keys, put them on the porcelain of the sink. You hear him unwrapping the cellophane wrapper around the top of the vitamin bottle, and you hear him scooping out pills the big sized pills of these multivitamins, and you hear them hit the porcelain of the bowl as he scoops out enough to take that vial from wherever he had it hidden, put it in there, and reclose the vial and give it to that cop who didn't realize that it was now unwrapped. What you don't hear is a single drop of pee.
Mm.
Nothing.
Hmm.
And so when I confront him with this, he says, well, I don't like the way this is going. I said, well, I didn't think you would, because there's a name for it, my friend. And you know what that is? It's called perjury. And it's what you've just done.
Oof.
The prosecutor, he goes, I want my lawyer. He hangs up the phone.
Oh my gosh.
The prosecutor looks at me, and he's white as a sheet. And he goes, would you take a misdemeanor? I said, my friend, no. Here's the way this is going to go now. I'm going to go out there and I'm going to convince her not to sue you and the police officer and your office for this complete and total miscarriage of justice. And in return, you are going to dismiss all charges against her. And that's going to happen today. And he was like, I can live with that.